Sir.
Indeed, we are.
What's up, my dude? How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm always happy to be on the show. Enjoying my new job,
Yeah.
but most importantly of all, happy to be talking about and bringing about the good news and bad news that's been in this week's headlines.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird, man. Like I've made sure to put it in the title. T-Mobile's ongoing issues with its 2.5 gigahertz spectrum, all kind of going back to the licensing issues. And we've covered topics that are associated and related to this. And these issues are not going anywhere. If anything, they seem over time, stuff leaks out, stuff gets out, we dig, and then we find more things that concern us about, how deep can T-Mobile go with the N41? The 5G UC is really important to their network. It really is how they're going to monetize their network because it's how they sell their mobile. It's how they create capacity for mobility and for the home internet. So a little bit more of those juicy details came out today from a story. It's lightreading.com. Mike Dano, he uncovered it. He does such a good job of finding stuff like that. He really freaking does, man. I got to give him his credit, man. This guy uncovers things and then puts it out there, and we're just like, damn.
Hold on,
Like,
Sneed. I got to put a pause. Something
okay,
tremendous just happened.
something tremendous. Okay, hit me with the tremendous.
Santiago, thank you for the incredible generosity
Oh
with the
man,
big old $49.99 super chat.
thanks, Santiago. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, that's really nice of you, man. You've always been so supportive of the community, supportive of me and the content and the live streams. Thank you for all that you do, man. And you've gone way above and beyond anything anyone can expect, man. Thank you so much. Incoming with the first super chat. Thanks, man. Look out below, man. Hit us over the head with it. Thanks, Santiago. Man, major. We do want to say hello to some people here in the live. Let's see who is here. We got Cesar. He made it by tonight. Good to see you, bud. Baby Yoda's in the house. Good to have you, man. Thanks for holding down the mod duties. Appreciate you much. Aaron P is here. Big John Tech Reviews, my dude. Good to see you, man. Hope all is well in your world as we're chilling here on this Wednesday night. And it's like 70 degrees in the CLE. Crazy. We went from like just a few days ago, it was like 20 to like 70. So we're happy about that. It feels like the first day of spring. Hashtag 2sleep crew. Big Sean. Big Nick. Yeah. Oh, snap. Big Lou. Good to see you, man. Hope all is well. Ram is here. Good to see familiar faces, man. You guys are the best. Thank you for coming through and hanging out. Do me a solid. Hit the like button. That helps out the channel. Appreciate you guys very much. RF Waves in the house. What's up, my dude? Good to have you, man. TJ is here. Welcome to the show. All right, Dennis. We got all the pleasantries exchanged. All right, let's start with the T-Mobile story. All right, so essentially what this boils down to, Dennis, is there are several ways in which it's starting to feel like T-Mobile just essentially rents its network. And it's not like one way, it's like multiple ways. So let me kind of give you where I'm coming from here. The 2.5 gigahertz situation, T-Mobile does own spectrum licenses. I think they own like 60 or 70% of their spectrum licenses. But if that indeed is accurate, that means that they lease like a third of it. That's a lot. And that's just spectrum. We didn't even get to the fiber piece, right? Because that's like something else. And, the future demand of what the fiber is going to be needed, like it's another thing. We'll talk about it after. Um, but the licenses situation, two reasons that this is concerning. Number one, they lease a lot of spectrum from a lot of random companies, like random holdings companies, random people, like guys, like just first and last name, like Bob Smith leases to T-Mobile. It's crazy, bro. Like Dennis from bestphoneplans.net leases spectrum to T-Mobile. It's great. And then there's companies, there's holding companies, and then there's like schools and churches. Like leasing from a lot of different entities. In and of itself, it's not the end of the world, but there's going to be a situation with the spectrum auction too, right? So they've got, and we covered that story last week. So the leases with the random companies and the random people and the churches and the schools and all of that, plus compounding it with the spectrum auction, I think, is it 108 or 110? I forget the name of the auction, whatever it is. It's up and coming. I think it's in July. And T-Mobile's going to want to shore up all of that. There's no reason any other telco company should have 2.5. We want T-Mobile's N41 to be contiguous. We want it to be deep. The 160, 180, 200, 220 megahertz, whatever it is. We want them to have it. Nobody should have 10 megahertz of it, 20 megahertz of it. That's ridiculous and nonsense. It should just go to T-Mobile so it's contiguous. But it looks like the FCC may want to let Verizon and AT&T know about the lease terms that these companies have with T-Mobile. T-Mobile is trying to bury it. They're telling the companies, they're sending them legal notices like, don't say anything. Like you got to stay hushed. Those are trade secrets, and you're jeopardizing our future, against our competitors if you disclose this information. But the FCC is like probably thinking to themselves, well, if Verizon and AT&T know, then they're more likely to bid, and then that drives up the pricing, and we generate more money in the auction. So like to the FCC, it's a slam dunk. Get that information exposed. Verizon, AT&T start to, figure out how they want to strategically be involved in this auction, because I truly believe this. If they were to get in on that spectrum, they don't want to build it. They don't want to deploy it. They don't want to turn it on the radios. They're just going to want to lease it to T-Mobile and collect rent. That's what I think they'd want.
So there's a few things I want to touch on. I'm gonna start with the most recent thing that you just said. I personally don't want to see any more situations where companies buy spectrum to just lease it out. I really dislike that.
Me too.
And the reason why I really dislike that is because you're talking about AT&T and Verizon doing that, but my bigger concern would be private equity firms participating, buying that spectrum and leasing it out. And private equity firms are literally the bane of the earth, in my opinion, when it comes to companies. I sent you some private messages behind the scenes when it comes to my thoughts on it, but that's the first concern I have. Second, as far as the sharing of the information goes, this is a complicated issue because on one hand, I could probably make a pretty good argument for why T-Mobile's information, like with these deals, shouldn't have to be public information. Like this is a one-on-one deal between me and you. No one should really be knowing, and and there's an argument to be had about how that is, company sensitive information, right? But on the other hand, let's call it the socialist in me wants that information to be public because that spectrum ultimately is owned by like the government. I mean, a company can own the license, but in reality, it's more like
they more like operate the license, right?
Yeah. Like, so on the other hand, I feel like it should be publicly disclosed so that A, we know how it's being utilized, B, we know who's receiving it and like who's dishing out and like all that other detailed information, and C is so that these other companies like Verizon, like AT&T can make informed purchasing decisions when they go up for the next auction, because spectrum doesn't really have like a hard value on it. Like it's not like when you go to the grocery store to buy a commodity like toilet paper, right? Like spectrum is somewhat subjective in the value that is placed on it. And knowing that, say, so and so college is making just $1 billion in passive income or whatever that figure is from T-Mobile over the span of 10 years for doing literally nothing is pretty good information to know, right? So that's kind of my thoughts. And then lastly, I will also just say I am not necessarily a big fan of how T-Mobile has been going about this, because prior to all this even happening, T-Mobile was kind of going mob boss style on these like little private universities. Basically, I would almost say if they're not outright lying, they're withholding truth.
They're bullying them.
Yeah.
They threaten them with legal action.
Right, and they're withholding information. Like they're making it, if they're not outright deceiving, at the very least they're omitting information, which makes it seem like these private holders have to sell to T-Mobile if they're going to sell to anybody else first, which is just not true. So it's really hard, man. There's no good guy in this whole situation, really, and whatever ends up happening is going to set an interesting precedent for the future, which is why I'm saying it's complicated and I'm not sure how to feel because it's hard to predict what the ramifications will be out of any outcome.
So, man, it's a loaded topic. It's obviously multifaceted and dynamic. I think I agree with you actually, Dennis. I don't have any disagreements with anything you said. I agree. AT&T and Verizon, I mean, if they get in, the only people that hurts is T-Mobile. Like literally the company. It only hurts them. Right? T-Mobile got a 5G stimulus. You know, when they got the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, they eliminated a competitor. They took all their customers and all of their assets. Good and bad problems, right? Like, I mean, there's market share, which is good, and then there was the debt, and then it's this leasing and all this comes together. But I agree with pretty much everything you said. The firms and the holdings companies that have the rights to the spectrum and all that, man, like you said, they're the bane of the existence in telco. I mean, dude, it's only this band that's really like that. I mean, 600 megahertz. I know that some companies lease to T-Mobile. You noticing a theme here, Dennis?
Is
Like
that
T-Mobile has to lease a lot of spectrum.
yes, and I just want to clarify one thing because I really want to emphasize this point. Dennis, the person, doesn't care if T-Mobile, the company, gets hurt. That's not the reason why I'd be concerned about AT&T and Verizon eating up that spectrum. The part that I'd be concerned about is the precedent that would be set where telco companies buy up spectrum to lease to their competitor instead of building out a network. Because if we say that's okay, right? Let's just say 5 years down the line, dynamics change, and there's a spectrum auction that goes up for that Verizon really wants. Maybe it's an addition and like another bit of mid band. It's like a continuation of like C band. It's like right next to it, right? Well, T-Mobile can go in and basically be like, well, we don't have a plan to deploy this, but we're going to buy this just to screw over Verizon. And now they're going to lease this. And then you get a whole new situation of fragmented spectrum with complicated leasing agreements.
You could turn that into spectrum swap opportunities, though.
You could do that, but I guess the main point of what I'm going for here, and I mean, I don't know the government that well, but I would hope this is their intent, is that if you're gonna buy this spectrum, you should be the one deploying it. That to me is the right way to go about things. I don't like the whole leasing it out deal. I get there's
You
business
don't like Dennis at bestfilmplans.net buying 10 megahertz at 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's gonna like, I just don't want to end up in a situation too where like company, let's just, I hate to pick on Dish, but a company like Dish, right? They buy all this spectrum and just sit on it for years until the government is literally forcing them to deploy it, right? Literally, that's what happened. It was forced on them to deploy it, right? But all the while, that spectrum could have been in much better hands had it been broken up between T-Mobile.
Anybody that had radios up, anyone.
Because those assets, I'm not saying they lost value, but like that low band stuff, I think we can agree is not as valuable today as it would have been 10 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's my whole stick, right? Like, I know it's great that the government wants to get taxpayer money and they don't care how it's raised, but like, I'm just looking at it as like what's good for the health of the industry, and what's good for the health of the industry is not allowing this like leasing model of networks to exist. With the only caveat,
It's only with this band though, Dennis.
I know
That's the crazy part, man. It's just this one.
I know you say that, but again, it's about precedents that get set. if the precedent gets set that
Yeah,
this
but
is
look at the
okay,
rules of the spectrum, Dennis. Like that's the issue. If you have a problem, you have a problem with the FCC. Like the rules should have been changed for this 10 years ago. Like whatever meetings or whatever could have taken place and they could have sorted it out, be like, look, we know what's coming down the pipeline. We need to sort this out now. You know, um, it's messy. And it's the only one that's like that. None of the other bands are like this.
I'm
Oh
sorry if
yeah.
I got focused on something that you weren't focused on. Go ahead and
No,
continue.
no, it's good. Big shout out to Visually Impaired Tech and More. Thanks for coming through. He asked how I was doing. I'm doing excellent. I hope you are good as well. What is it? Cesar is saying T-Mobile should get it, but I think Verizon AT&T should be able to get the 2.5 like place in Hawaii where there's no C-band. That's an interesting situation. I just don't see the FCC intervening in that capacity, right? They're not going to, look at certain states and all of that.
Again, I'm fine if Verizon AT&T get it if they
If it goes
deploy
on
it.
air, right. Yeah.
If they lease it to T-Mobile, that's where I have the problem. Or just lease it in general. If they lease it in general and don't use it,
As long as it's on air, I don't care. I just think it looks bad and it's makes no business sense. Like T-Mobile should be ready to break the bank to not allow anyone else to get this spectrum.
I
They need
agree
to
with
move
you.
hell and high water to make sure that nobody gets a single 2.5 license.
I
Now
agree with you.
here's the thing, man. And I know there's a lot of people jumping in. I see RFK and Darian and Starlight. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming through. Big Lou chimed in. T-Mobile not showing their cards. Lay the cards on the table, call their bluff. I mean, that's money talks, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to. But so here's the bottom line, man. I said this a long time ago, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, T-Mobile's getting involved in this. They're getting involved in these spectrum auctions." Well, they already have 160 megahertz national, and why are they buying 40 megahertz of 3.7? Why are they buying 20 and 40 megahertz of the 3.45? It's very simple. They know they have deficiencies in licenses in 2.5. If you look at where they got this spectrum, there's only two situations: the 3.7 and the 3.45 C band. Their 2.5 is either weak there, or it's such a big market for them, they just need the spectrum. They know it. And for anybody out there holding their breath on T-Mobile's millimeter wave, let me know when your face turns blue.
Vegas was the only place I've seen and got to use T-Mobile's millimeter wave.
Dennis, I'm not exaggerating. There are 7 nodes in Cleveland for T-Mobile. 3 of them work, and it's the same 3 for the last 2 years. It's
Yep.
almost 3 years now, actually. I'm when did the millimeter wave launch? 2018, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. 2020 or maybe 2019. It was before the pandemic, obviously. The There's like 7 sites on the map. I tested all of them and only 3 connect. 2 of them connect pretty good. The one on West 25th by the market connects really well. There's one by the Cleveland Clinic that connects pretty good. You get like 1.1 gigs per second. Oh, it's one by CSU. That one connects good too. Those 3. That's it.
So I just want to say something really important here. All carriers still to this day technically have spectrum deficiencies, if we're being honest. Especially and specifically if we're talking about a macro-based network approach. I mean, we talked about it last week where I was telling you about how much spectrum realistically is going to be needed if you want to do this home internet. I don't know if you agreed with me or disagree with me too much, but all the carriers need more spectrum, and they need a lot more spectrum. Like each
Okay,
one,
so
each one is going to vary at the very minimum is going to need 400 megahertz of midband.
yeah, that's at least. At
I'm
least.
I'm, I'm
Yeah.
talking minimums here.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I agree. What are we talking here? Verizon's got 200, 180, 160 of 3.7. AT&T is going to be pushing 120, 140 in some places. T-Mobile's closer to like the 200 mark, 160, 180, 200, 220, 240, because they got DoD and they got 3.7. And they do have a lot of PCS. And they have AWS. Like all these companies they don't have spectrum problems anymore. They just got to put up the radio gear, right? They just got to get it on air. But they will need more. AT&T will probably need the least. T-Mobile and Verizon will need more. Just
Why do you
because
think?
they're doing mobile and they're also doing home internet for fixed wireless. So like, if AT&T has like 20% less spectrum, they're also going to have 20% less traffic. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
I partially disagree with you, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, AT&T isn't making a big focus on fixed wireless home internet access at the moment. They do have enterprise use cases where that is a factor, and also don't forget AT&T is typically the one winning the contracts for like your All-Star in your car with those little hotspots and stuff like that, and other types of devices that are along those lines. So AT&T has a lot more traffic than I think you're accounting for.
yeah,
That
but those aren't high bandwidth applications. Those are low latency applications, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, let's just take the. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
they're
use an
definitely connected. I mean, that's true, no doubt.
like
Like,
I'm just gonna use an example that like that internet in your car hotspot, right? I mean, it really is just a hotspot on the go, right? It's not that hard to imagine that a couple kids watching some Netflix or something in the back, right, is gonna pull
20 megabits.
50. I was gonna say if there's a
Oh,
couple
wow.
kids,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 megabits here, 50 megabits here. It doesn't sound like much, but then it adds up really, really quickly. And also remember too, AT&T's So AT&T's network, I argue, is, in my opinion, the best in terms of coverage at this point. But they're we can get into it in a minute. But their tower spacing isn't necessarily like perfect in all parts of the country. So they have the towers really stretched out pretty far.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I'm saying best in coverage, I'm talking about like they have the most coverage, square miles of coverage at this point. They do. They surpass Verizon in square miles coverage, which is why I was saying the best. Not best in your area, obviously. I know in your area you got good Verizon. I'm just saying.
No, man, AT&T is tremendous in Ohio. It's incredible. I mean, the network is night and day different than like 3-4 years ago. Huge upgrades. And the first time I actually realized it was when I had a Chevy Malibu and it had a 4G LTE connection that it was like 20 gigs a month or something like that for like the first year. And I was like, the signal's good. There's tons of capacity. The radio never buffers. I would use the hotspot for my phones to test, and it was great.
So I think we
But
should address a comment real quick. Ryan, I don't think me and Sneed are actually hating on T-Mobile here. If anything, we're talking about the importance of why they need to get this spectrum, why it's really important for the good of the wireless and telecom market.
yeah, I don't know, man. It's just some people think that they think if you criticize what a company is doing, that means you hate them, and I don't know, people can't distinguish it or whatever. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, I can't be objective if I can't criticize. You
I
know
mean,
what I'm saying? I
we can call we can call out poor business decisions from like an executive level. Like I know T-Mobile's struggling for money and has various priorities that I'm sure that are being worked on that we don't even know about. But at the end of the day, acquiring that spectrum is absolutely paramount for
It
the
is.
long-term survival of T-Mobile. If T-Mobile does not get that spectrum,
I
it
mean,
is
didn't we
going to
just say that we hope that T-Mobile gets all of it?
agree. Yeah, we agreed on that.
I'm just saying that it's gonna cost them more.
Yeah.
I think AT&T and Verizon are gonna be disruptive. The moment they find out what those leases are generating for revenue, they're gonna wanna play a part in this, and it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, T-Mobile literally said at the last auction, "We're gonna force the price up. We're gonna make Verizon and AT&T break the bank." You mean to tell me that AT&T and Verizon didn't hear that? Mike Sievert literally said that at an earnings call. He literally said that to his investors. I mean, they've been speaking from a position. They speak from a position of power, whether or not it's true or reality, whatever. But I'm just saying that stuff does not go unnoticed. I guarantee you, all those years of little jabs at rival CEOs, they take it personally. How? How wouldn't they take it personally? They're literally alpha males. Think about it. There's literally 3 of these. There's 3 in the country. You mean to tell me those guys aren't lions, bro? Those guys are roaring. John Stanky, Hans Vestberg, Mike Sievert, they roar when they go into their offices, dog.
I mean, there's a reason they got as big as they were and became a duopoly for the longest time.
Yeah, man. I mean, and look, I hope for just, and the bottom line is, I just want these carriers building networks that are ultra competitive against one another. I'm just thinking aloud saying, this is going to hurt T-Mobile financially. They're going to have to spend more if this information comes out. AT&T and Verizon find out how much these leases generate and the duration and the terms and all. It's going to hurt this. It's going to drive up the price.
Let me ask you a somewhat pessimistic question, but based off everything that we know, right? The fact that T-Mobile has large obstacles that got to be overcome if they want to kind of remain in business, right? Owning spectrum, getting their own fiber, etc. Do you think that T-Mobile going into the 5G era is going to be a real competitor to AT&T and Verizon, or do you think we're going to have history repeat itself and have the duopoly back and bigger than ever?
The later and longer T-Mobile waits to be an owner, the more likely they are to play catch up again.
And let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Do you think Dish will be able to fill in the shoes that Sprint left behind to at least put in price controls?
Dish is an interesting situation. If Dish can add 20 million customers in the first 5 years of their existence, I call that a win. I'm going to tell you why. Sprint didn't add customers, net adds, for 10 years.
I agree with you.
It felt like 10 years. I don't have the exact numbers. I used to take notes on all of this. I probably have it stored somewhere. But it seemed like forever they were stuck at like 40, 43 million subscribers.
Let me ask.
They were one of the biggest carriers in the country, and they stopped. And then they started losing. And T-Mobile was taking, and T-Mobile was growing, and Verizon was growing, and AT&T was growing, and Sprint was just stuck in the mud, dude.
Let me ask you one more question on this topic. As far as providing meaningful competition and keeping prices in control, do you think that big cable with their MVNO agreements might actually end up filling that slot? So Xfinity Mobile, Spectrum Mobile, etc.
They actually do something better than Sprint. They have agreements with Verizon. They have coverage.
Well, the reason why I brought them
and
up,
they give discounts too, so it's not like they're not competitive.
Well, the reason why I brought them up specifically is because they solve one problem that T-Mobile is going to have the hardest time fixing, and that's having their own fiber. And on top of that, they have the infrastructure to offload, I don't know whatever the percentage is, but a good amount of the traffic, right? Like a lot of the traffic that they're generating isn't actually going over the cellular network, which means they're not paying Verizon.
If they're on a metered plan, those customers are very light on Verizon. That's true. Yeah, they're going to spend a lot of time in those Wi-Fi hotspots. They're obviously on their home network. They go to work. They probably get on Wi-Fi if they wanted to. They're mindful that they're on a metered plan, so they're just not using it. And they're paying what, $30 a line? They feel like they're winning.
Less. If you're talking about if you're talking about the bucket plans, they're literally paying for the bucket.
Oh, they could be paying like $20, right?
I'm just gonna use an example, Sneed. Let's just say you, me, and like your family, we all just wanted to share 10 gigs of data. It'd literally be like $60, and then with the taxes, maybe like $68 max.
Oh, I thought it was like each line is $20, and then you can pay by the gig or you can have an unlimited plan.
No, it's literally like legitimately. You could have 10 people sharing a gig of data and be paying like $20. Like,
wow.
So
okay, real quick, before I forget, Darian super chat here. Thanks, Darian. Can Verizon and AT&T just outbid T-Mobile in the next auction? Can T-Mobile keep up money-wise with them? So, yeah, they could outbid them. I don't envision a world where T-Mobile allows it to happen. They've been saving their ducats for this. They've taken a lot of they've taken on a lot of debt for this, I believe. I think they're ready to spend for it. They know it's coming. They're not stupid. Like T-Mobile says stupid things, like the marketing and the advertising and the earnings calls. Like you're not going to agree with all that stuff, but those are smart people making business decisions for a huge billion-dollar corporation where there's only like 3 of them. So these people are smart and they're ready. And it wouldn't surprise me to see like AT&T and Verizon shake things up a little bit in the auction, but ultimately T-Mobile outspending them because they have everything to lose. T-Mobile's the only company that could lose in this. There's no version of this where Verizon and AT&T lose.
So I think we pretty much beat this topic pretty well. I want to talk about the thing that I shared with you because I think it's interesting and possibly somewhat exciting, which is Verizon just won a major contract from the government to the tune of about $1 billion in value to deploy critical infrastructure for the Pentagon as well as a few other institutions.
Yeah, it's the value at $1 billion. That's pretty good. I feel like most of these contracts settle in around 500, 600 million. So this one's like double that. That's pretty big. DoD contracts are meaningful. I could have sworn, Dennis, that this may have been an old AT&T contract. I really do. I think it might have been because I may have covered a story like a year or two ago. And maybe that's what they do. They do contracts in 1 or 2 years. So AT&T was maintaining their networking and stuff like that. And now they're going back with Verizon because I'm pretty sure it was Verizon before. All right. Now, I do have some of the details of the story. This is from readers.com. The DoD contract is to digitalize the DoD, and it provides support, technical support, network modernization services. It includes services to the Pentagon and the National Capital Region and Fort Belvoir, which I'm not familiar with that particular location. But it's going to give internet protocol based services and voice and video services and other network related supports. It's a connectivity data service contract.
Right. But the reason why I'm excited about it, or happy about it, I should say, is because it forces Verizon to deploy fiber to places that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to or had the business want to do so. Um Basically what I'm getting at here is when we've been talking about fiber, right? The main company we've been talking about all the time is AT&T going ham, right? This is important because Verizon has been slow to deploy their fiber, and I feel like this is a well-needed stimulus check to run many miles of fiber and hopefully have the added benefits of getting other people connected outside of just these enterprise needs. Like when they run it to that military base, there are soldiers that are going to live on the residential housing in those bases. Hopefully now Verizon will also be able to offer those, soldiers or what have them,
Mhm.
proper fiber connectivity. I don't know if you know this, Sneed, but like bases oftentimes to have like normal residential houses for like
Absolutely. Yeah.
officers with their wives and stuff. So
Don't they
like
treat it like basically a base/campus?
basically, man. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
literally, I lived in South Korea for a month, and I was visiting a buddy who was in the Air Force, in the U.S. Air Force Base. Literally a military base, especially when you're like out of country, is like you just carved up a piece of the U.S. and just dropped it somewhere else. It's got like fast food chains, it's got bowling alleys, it's got all kinds of other stuff on them.
Well,
But
so here's the thing. So like this comment here from Ryan, Renee Ritchie ripping millimeter wave in every single iPhone review about how millimeter wave is worthless. I mean, I don't he's clearly not in a millimeter wave market where Verizon has built millimeter wave. That's really the situation where I think like having a millimeter wave phone matters. What's exciting actually about this contract, Dennis, these bases, these regions are going to get millimeter wave 5G ultra wideband C-band from Verizon like fast. Like they'll all get it this year and they won't have restrictions on licensing. It's not going to be an A block, B block, C block situation at all. right? So this is pretty cool, man. They'll get upgrades probably within the calendar year. Like, I would expect these upgrades to be tangible, noticeable, and mostly done by the end of the year. Yeah, I can't Ryan, I can't speak to Rogers. I don't know much about the company. I know there's Rogers, I know there's Bell and Telus. I don't know much about them. Uh who would you consider to be the Verizon of Canadian carriers or the AT&T of Canadian carriers? I don't know, man. I really don't. I like to focus on domestic because I mean, me putting focus and emphasis into Canada would make no sense. I don't even know if I have Canadian viewers. If I did have Canadian viewers, I would cover it.
Well,
Definitely.
more importantly, while it's fun to talk about, like, look at other countries and how they're doing things, for us, it's hard for us to give valid feedback because all we can do is hear what others have to say. Whereas with domestic carriers, we have daily interactions with them, whether it be their customer support, their service, their upgrades. Like, we literally have a pulse on them.
Yeah.
But Sneed, do you remember at the beginning of this show, I had a little surprise for you?
Yeah, man. Tell me about it, bro.
Well, first, I want you to guess what the surprise might be.
It's fiber related. It has to be fiber related. It has to be.
Sort of.
Okay, what'd they do for you, man? Tell me about this.
It's more internet related.
Oh, okay.
In general. So I know, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I know that you have a big stink when it comes to asymmetrical speeds from cable and upload speeds. So
I want 100 megabit uplink on cable. Can we get there?
So let me say what I did though.
All right, man.
During the entirety of this stream, which has been uploaded in 1080p, I have had my internet speeds capped, personally throttled by my router to 5 megabits per second down and 5 megabits per second up. Have you noticed any difference in quality? Mm-hmm. The point of me doing this was to highlight the fact that I'm not saying I wish this upon anybody, but the point of the matter is that it doesn't inhibit me from doing something like this.
That is correct. It doesn't prohibit you from doing something like this. It will prohibit you from uploading a 12-minute 4K 60 frames per second speed with Sneed episode.
That's true.
All right, but a live stream, you are correct, sir. You are correct.
I will also just say that believe it or not, I told you this earlier, but Verizon wouldn't connect. I was planning on holding off on this until another stream, but decided to opt for it today since I had to connect the Comcast anyway. Oh, did I tell you, by the way, too, that I got my Verizon Fios down to $65 a month for gig?
What was the price?
65. I have it
Does
down to
that
that.
save you $10?
Mhm.
$15?
$10.
Good man. Good man. Good deal. All because competition.
Yeah, but you know who the
Mr.
competition
Dennis
was?
didn't have to do nothing except inquire. He said, "Look, I'm gonna switch. Oh, we'll give you a better deal."
Yeah, but you know who the competition was? It was Big Cable.
Yeah. Well, that's Dennis. I'm telling you, man. Let them duke it out. And Dennis, this is not coincidence, my dude. Fixed wireless access. It may not be a right hook to the cable industry, but it is a stiff jab. Okay, they are walking into a stiff jab. Bro, a punch is a punch. If you walk into my fist with your face, you're going to know. I look at fixed wireless like a stiff jab.
Well, you want to know something? Steed? I have a prediction.
I like Dennis predictions.
I'm
Let's
just
see
typing you something. So I have a prediction. I think that competition is getting so good that in the not so distant future, we're going to see Big Cable offer some of the most aggressive promos we've seen to date to entice people to A, stay with them, and B, get that cell phone service. I have a feeling we're going to end up seeing gigabit internet go to like $45 a month.
Fixed wireless can't compete with that.
I know. And if you remember earlier,
from a performance standpoint, they can't compete with that.
But if you remember earlier when you talked about fixed wireless, You talked about the pricing and how people save money. I told you that big cable has a playbook. They'll lower their prices to whatever it takes to bleed out the competition, even if it means hold on, even if it means they can't kill a company like Verizon, they
Right.
can get it to a point where Verizon doesn't want to even bother investing in the equipment upgrades. If
But
they
then
keep
they don't. The cable still doesn't get it. A 1-year explosive pricing is the problem. They're gonna leave after the term. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the issue. I'll poll. Look how many people are in here. There's 100 people. Check
okay,
it.
yep,
If we polled 100 people, a majority of these people left cable or want to leave cable because of explosive pricing. That's the only thing, Dennis. Most cable operators can offer a decent experience. The technology is good enough. We can do gigabit down. We can get you 40 up, whatever, 30 up, fine. The trouble is the pricing. Everybody says it in all my videos. They always comment in the live chats. The people have spoken, Dennis. The SMT Nation, let your voice be heard. It's the pricing, Dennis.
yeah,
It's
I
not all
agree.
the other. So if they don't fix that, because Verizon ain't doing that, dog. They're $50, $60, $40. They'll give you a promo on the front end, but even when that promo is up, it's $50, $40. That's cheaper than, bro. The balloon pricing on cable is going to take it to $100, 110,
I agree with everything you're saying about balloon pricing being the problem, and I'll even say upload speeds are the problem. That's the two problems that cable has against it. That being said, just because we say it's a problem, it's based off what consumers do. And the truth of the matter is, the reason why these cable operators do the ballooning pricing is because most consumers don't even check their bill. They just set it and forget it, right?
Well,
Auto
then
pay.
when they learn, then when they experience it, oh, Verizon has home internet. Oh, I'll give them a shot.
But the second thing I was going to say is this: there is a pain, there is a pain to switching when it comes to anything, right? Like when you start looking at the numbers, your internet's more expensive, but your cell phone service is cheaper on the like when you do the cable bundle, right? Because they're subsidizing that cell phone cost, right?
Uh-huh.
With Verizon Wireless, it's the opposite. The cell phone service is basically like cable pricing, right? $85 for that premium unlimited plan, or with tax, what, like $100 almost, right? $100 for your cell phone bill, $25 on the internet. At the end of the day, it's the same or roughly equivalents
Yeah.
in total money coming out of checking account, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And there's a painful switcher's cost, right? There's a reason why every company has to spend like $1,000 just to get the person to switch, because it's painful.
Yeah.
Now it's less painful to switch to fixed wireless because it doesn't require a tech. That's true.
No, it's very convenient. No cables, no machines no drilling, no tech needed.
But I think you underestimate the pain that comes from switching in general, like everything else, right? The hassle of now having to talk to your cable provider, try to get your port out pin for your
Dennis,
phone number.
but that's one of the advantages of the fixed wireless. I ordered fixed wireless home internet from Verizon for my parents.
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes. You know what took me the most time was going and pick it up for the store. It was 10 minutes away. I set it up on the way to their house. I literally plugged it into an AC adapter and programmed it on a cell tower, like a random tower where I picked it up from. It was tremendous. And what do my parents have, like, freaking, what are their options? Wow, freaking Spectrum trash. Bro, my dad was paying like 200-300 mega for 200-300 megabits a second, and the video was buffering on the TV. So like I was like, "Hey, we'll just do this instead." Big shout out to Kamikaze Kid. Thank you for the super chat. He shot us over the hippo character, moving at high speed with the legs, with the ball like blur. Appreciate you, Kamikaze Kid. Thanks for all your support, man. Yeah, man. It's not painful to do fixed wireless. I think just in general, it's like the accounting, the bill change. You're gonna have to set up an auto pay, moving companies. They want their equipment back. You got to drop it off. That stuff. I agree with you, Dennis. It's annoying. I mean, I've done it
I
several
guess
times.
what I'm going for is I'm not because I clarified, like getting fixed wireless is easier than getting cable,
Yeah,
right? For the
yeah,
first time. But the
yeah,
thing I was going for is that leaving either or is not as easy as me trying to cancel my Netflix subscription. It is you
yeah,
have to call
yeah.
to a person, you have to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't port out your number and get your port out pin prior to the cancellation, you just lose it for good. It's just like in limbo. Like there are things that you have to do, and it's not fun with either company.
No,
Um,
I mean, maybe and you know what? You brought up that point of it becoming like a sticky situation where they'll basically like Spectrum,
mhm,
Charter, Comcast, these companies, they're not making any money on the wireless subscriber. They
correct.
just want them there so they don't go to like, anywhere else for any of this other stuff that's going on. They're like, "Okay, well" see, and that's the thing, like, these CEOs talk a good game. "We're not worried, it's all marketing, blah, blah, blah." Yeah, okay, so that's why your prices are dropping. You know? "Oh, okay, that's why now you wanna do DOCSIS 3.1 and Dennis 4.0, right? Now you wanna do all these great things like Dennis 4.0." You
Can I
feel me?
just
Like, they
can I say one really important thing? And it's fine if you want to disagree with me, but I'm just gonna say this. DOCSIS 3.1 and DOCSIS 4.0 were going to happen regardless of competition or
when?
not. Let me finish. They were going to happen regardless of competition or not because local municipalities and other government officials in specific levels were beginning to pressure these cable operators for not meeting their demands. Like when the whole COVID thing happened and remote schooling happened, everyone had like this aha moment, like the internet's actually
Oh, we
important.
need it.
Like like that government pressure honestly is actually more impactful than any level of competition because competition takes time. Like competition takes time to actually have tangible changes in the market, right? Like the market doesn't just react and freak out when T-Mobile releases $50 internet because nothing changes. It's going to take time for them to actually get enough subscribers for it to be like, yes, now this is becoming a problem. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, Comcast looks at their freaking billions in revenue and they're like, we lost $100,000. I pay, I would have paid 10 million to have to run lines to them. Take them. They're yours, you know?
I'm a little worried about some of the regional providers.
You're talking about like Armstrongs and Blue Devils of the world and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm wondering how they play their cards because with an infrastructure bill, I'm less concerned about them. I think they find ways to make it work and they can build their networks out larger footprint
Mhm.
wise. My concern is that if there is no infrastructure bill and Comcast, and Spectrum and all of this, like, bro, they're ruthless. Like they will try to bury anyone in their way.
Mhm.
That's telco, that's Verizon, that's AT&T, they're all the same, dog. I mean, one guy's name is Roberts, one guy's name is Vestberg, one guy's name is Stanky,
They
like,
make
what's
Walmart look like a saint.
yeah, man, it's crazy. So, like, I'm not defending any one of them, but I'm just getting the impression that some of these regional providers, if they don't do fiber, they can't really distinguish themselves
Imma
because they're
tell
not gonna
you
be able to mess with that cost, Dennis, that
Imma tell you
price.
right now, there's 3 outcomes that happen. Are you ready? One is that the infrastructure bill passes and regional providers get the money they need, and they can do upgrades,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
important.
yeah,
The second outcome is that doesn't happen, and big companies like Comcast opt to acquire them, and they exist no more. Or the third option is that they just stop existing in general, and the people they serve no longer have internet from them.
yeah,
Those are all very likely outcomes, and it's going to depend on just how small we're talking about. If it's a Blue Devil, where it's literally 2 cities, and the amount of people that they serve literally is less than 5,000 people total,
yeah,
no one's gonna buy them. Not the private equity firm, not Comcast, not anyone, because they are so far away from like Comcast native network that they have no interest. So their only hope is to basically just like they don't even have the money to upgrade. Like that's how small they are. They can't afford to upgrade. That's the reason why they just got DOCSIS 3.0 and they're
yeah,
barely doing it correct.
right.
If it's an Armstrong, which is a little bit bigger,
More
right?
established, bigger range, more
More
coverage, more
money,
customers, yeah.
they are doing this, are transitioning to fiber in completely in profitable areas and just keeping DOCSIS coax. And I don't see them selling out to a Comcast. At least not anytime soon.
No,
Because
they'll operate in Comcast. I mean, if they ever felt like they wanted to grow, I mean, they could throw the money at them. They
they
have
can't.
money.
No, no, no,
No?
no, 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 no. No, Armstrong does not throw the money to compete with Comcast. Comcast throws the money to compete with Armstrong in the place that they want to go. Armstrong
Well,
does not.
that's what I was saying. I was saying Comcast can come in and I mean, they could buy them.
Yes.
Yeah, they could. That's what I was implying is that
Oh,
they
sorry.
could
I thought you
buy
were talking about
Armstrong Cable.
Armstrong competing in Comcast footprint. I was like, that's mad.
No, they wanna stay away.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
want to.
most companies wanna stay away. The only companies that could really harm a company like Comcast is just a municipal fiber option because
Literally, it is the only company.
I can't I mean, fixed wireless can compete price-wise, but it's the tech isn't as good,
It's
you
not even
know?
about the tech. The problem that you're missing here is that in that scenario, Comcast still wins. Who's running the backhaul to those to those small cells, right? Comcast still wins.
I don't know, Verizon runs 50% of its own fiber.
Not in Pennsylvania.
What do you mean not in Pennsylvania? You mean to tell me there's no MCI cables in Pennsylvania? Are you crazy?
Dude, every single cell
Check
phone
the
provider,
tags. Check
every
the
single
tags.
cell phone provider in the Pittsburgh area is using Comcast for backhaul.
I'll be in Pittsburgh soon, Dennis, and I swear if I find MCI cables on those power lines, I'm gonna save the bear, bro. I'm
Seriously, there? Okay.
because I was shocked too here. I started looking at the polls and there's MCI fiber everywhere. That's Verizon.
I mean, dude, I'll take you out. I'll take you out to a few places. I'll even show you where Armstrong is running backhaul for the carriers. In places where Comcast doesn't exist, Armstrong's the one running the backhaul. Cranberry would be a good example of that.
Bro, they're number 2 in fiber run in the country. I just wanted you to know.
I know,
Number 2.
I know, and yet
Okay.
they took money in Pennsylvania and didn't deploy it anywhere. So
You're talking about Fios, Dennis.
talking about Verizon,
Yes, Fios. That's different.
I'm
Dennis,
just saying,
Dennis, Verizon Fios is a fiber to premises, right?
residential facing
Okay,
company.
okay.
Yeah.
It's different. There are a lot of areas in Pennsylvania that definitely have MCI Verizon fiber that is not associated with the Fios at all. They're unrelated. It's important that we designate that because there are places where Verizon has no Fios. Verizon does not have Fios in Ohio.
I'm
I
aware.
don't know where it is if they
That's
have it.
AT&T country.
It's AT&T, it's Spectrum, it's Cox.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Verizon Fios here, but MCI Verizon fiber is littered across the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enterprise, it's commercial. It
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with fiber to premises.
Mm-hmm. I'm aware.
We're gonna find it, Dennis. When we link up at Pittsburgh, we're gonna go looking for those orange MCI tags. All right,
They're
the
gonna
red
have to
tags.
make a trilogy about us, similar to Lord of the Rings in length, as we try to find this magical MCIS fiber.
Who's number 1 in Pittsburgh for a fiber run? Who do you see the most of? Who's infrastructure?
It's got to be Comcast.
Gotta be. I think
If
Comcast is number 3 in the country.
if it's not Comcast, I'll eat this beanie for you. I'll literally
No,
have a.
I'm with you. I'd bet with you on that one. It probably is Comcast. It's a Comcast type city. I've been downtown. I've seen the hubs and I've seen all their gear and stuff. I saw the trucks actually when I was downtown.
Dude, they
They're
have
everywhere.
so many fleets of trucks. It's insane.
But when the last time I was there, like it was pre-pandemic, Verizon was building small cells. I do remember that.
There's small cells
Yeah.
here, but hey, you want to know a fun fact? I believe, if memory serves me correctly, Comcast actually has like one of the largest fleets of cows.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
And what do they do with them?
Well, some of them are used for like sporting events, like when like NBC Universal does like NASCAR and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then some of them literally get like leased out to like emergency service and stuff like that. There's like a big wildfire, like a snowstorm or something
They
like
just
that.
convert them into like 2.4 5 gigahertz connections, Wi-Fi, right?
But
Okay.
they're able to be used for other purposes as well, like
Private networks and stuff?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I mean,
What's up, Leslie?
it's pretty wide and variant, and it's pretty wide in their use case as far as things go. But I believe they have one of the largest like fleets in the country.
They got so much money, Dennis. They can do whatever the hell they want. You remember how Verizon made the Thor?
Yes.
Okay, like if Comcast wanted to, I bet you they could build, design, and have a fleet of 1,000 of those.
Hey, I know this show's getting long in the tooth, but you just gave me an absolute pinnacle genius topic that I feel like needs to be discussed really quickly.
All right.
You remember a few weeks back, we talked about 5G standalone core and what that's going to mean for fixed wireless?
Yeah, man.
Something we haven't talked about is what updated core networks is going to do just for all of networking in general. We totally did not talk about how traditional ISPs also have been engaging in AI for network management. I don't know if you remember when COVID was going full swing, but I remember seeing articles about how capacity was increased by roughly 30%.
Yeah.
Just from network management from a virtualized like CMTS when it came to cable operators and things like that. My question to you is, what do you think is the next step from here when it comes to edge cell like networking and stuff like that when it comes to the traditional sense of ISPs?
It's network slicing.
You think
It is so crucial. That has to be the first step. We need designated network segments. Right? We need dedicated bandwidth, dedicated latency, guaranteed latency. We need standards-based network slicing so bad, Dennis, because the type of traffic needs to be categorized and placed into proper lanes. Like keeping it away from general traffic. Like I'm not even like web browsing traffic, like who cares? The latency doesn't matter. It just doesn't. If it's under 50 milliseconds, it's fine.
literally it's actually if it's under 2000.
Yeah, like web pages, like who cares? Apps, very sensitive apps. This is where we're getting into why the latency matters. Day trading, stock exchange, betting, sports betting. Bro, there are people placing bets between quarters. They just bought a hot dog. They're putting on the ketchup and the mustard. They can place a bet over under 40 points in an NBA game for the quarter. LeBron, whatever. You bet a player, prop bets. I think about those things. The latency matters. No frills. You got to be under 10 milliseconds, right? And gaming. Bro, you can have like gaming conventions that these private networks can manage. The whole thing. From monitors to gaming to live streaming, the whole thing, right? Unique experiences, 3D, AR, VR, whatever you want to do. But that network slicing is crucial. The bandwidth has to kick up, obviously, right? You got to have dedicated mid-band. Millimeter wave is going to be really, really important. I don't care what Rene Ritchie says. He doesn't understand networking. Like he must be thinking about the networking from his grandfather's days when it was like, yeah, let's get some CDMA up there. Let's get some calling and texting going on. Like we have to move beyond that. This is why I respect Ricky. Ricky focuses on the 3GPP standards. Respect it. We look at all the rels, bro, all the releases, 15, 16, 17, 18. We look forward looking. This is what I'm talking about. So, Dennis, when you ask me the most important, paramount, critical thing today they should be focusing on needs to be network slicing. Dedicated segments of networks, no compromises. Yeah, and I agree. Brian mentioned uplink. I need uplink, dog.
So can I mention something that's interesting? And I just
Yeah.
want your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So while wireless MNOs can deploy their own networking core to manage their network in an intelligent way, the reason I brought up traditional ISPs is because they're not slacking in their own investments with managing their own networks. What do you think the chances are of, say, someone like a Dish or a T-Mobile basically outsourcing some of that tech management and just buying some prepackaged solution from someone like a Comcast?
Cloud solutions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I picked Comcast is because we know they have the virtual CMTS deployed. That got deployed like back in 2017. Roger Etner talked about it. I think it was on my show, or it might have been on your show. I'm not sure which one I watched it on, but Roger Etner talked about it. And again, there was articles when COVID happened that talked about the importance of why that was important for managing like the spike and increase of traffic, because it literally dynamically allowed them to basically up backhaul to nodes that already had the circuits deployed on an on-demand, like on an on-use case basis. So, you know, they're investing money in that, and obviously they have enterprise customer needs where they invested money in to meet their needs. What do you think the chances are of like someone like Comcast basically being like, here you go, T-Mobile, go ahead and use this tech, and T-Mobile just accepting that and not developing their own 5G core?
Well, the network cores are going to be provided from companies like Nokia, and you know, it looks like Nokia is kind of ahead on this because Dish chose Nokia. I think T-Mobile did too. Don't quote me on that one. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. I think Nokia is they're the ones that are running these network cores. Did Verizon choose a different vendor? Yeah.
The core is software, yeah.
Yeah, so and the core is interesting because the core is, I mean, it's as open as it can be. You know, like the whole concept of an O-RAN 5G world,
Right.
like that's music to the vendor, that's music to the carrier, the MNO's ears.
Right.
It's a nightmare for the vendors because they can't lock in those deals where it's like exclusive hardware, and then they're the ones providing the software.
Right,
T-Mobile
which
has
is
Ericsson core in some markets. Oh, okay, so it's mixed. All right.
why I'm saying, technically speaking, anyone can develop the core. It doesn't have to be the vendor themselves. It can literally be anyone.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a special design core from some company in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, like when I think of Dish, Two Cows and Mavenir and all this other stuff, I'm just like, I never heard of any Fujitsu, you know, like I'm like, what in the world is going on?
Hey,
But like,
so what do you think the odds are?
oh, and there's a super chat from Santiago here.
Go ahead.
He says, since I'm visually impaired, I actually rely on certain apps for navigation in unfamiliar areas, and low ping rates on mobile networks are crucial for those. I have to agree. Those are non-negotiable things, man. You end up with a wrong turn, you get lost, you get turned around, misoriented. And I mean, you're in a situation, your circumstances, it's high stakes. You know what I'm saying? That's going to just completely detour you. You know, your timing, scheduling. I mean, I totally agree. Yeah. And latency is how these carriers manage their networks. I don't know if you guys know it. They use latency to bog down your experience to deprio you. You know, what's Visible's issue? Dude, the ping times are like 1,000 milliseconds.
I need to make a small correction. The reason why Visible's ping times are so high is not because of the deprior necessarily. It's because they only have like 2 servers in the country.
They added a new one, and now like the pings are like 200.
That's better, right? Or worse?
It's better. So we're trading this shit sandwich for the bologna.
I'm just saying it's because they're not using the actual Verizon net. Like they're routing the traffic through 2 servers.
Okay, why? Cheaper, slower, less, you know, less power commitment, less bandwidth need. Like it's all of that.
Yeah.
Bro, there's literally 3 gnomes running those servers.
The only reason why I bring it up is because those problems don't exist on an option like US Mobile, for example.
Yes, correct. Yeah, because they're considered business lines. Like US Mobile literally has priority, you know?
They don't have priority though. They're deprioritized. They're QCI 9.
Oh, the US Mobile's QCI 9?
Yeah.
I really thought US Mobile was QCI 8, man, on the tiered plans.
No,
dang. All right, man. Well, Visible's the worst when it comes to latency. It is awful.
But the reason for that is because of what I just mentioned, not because of the depriority itself.
Yeah, but when you get deprioed, Dennis, like
Yeah.
let's say it's a congested site and there's just a lot of users on it.
Yeah.
Watch the latency. Watch.
No, yeah, I'm aware. I'm just saying,
but they literally they take your bandwidth and they just squeeze.
Yeah, it's like
nothing.
squeezing a turnip. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's rough. Dennis, look, man, but the goal was to be on for 1 hour. We did it. All right, that is excellent. Thank you for hanging out with me, man. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. Our conversations are always incredible, man. I value them very much, and thanks for being on.
Well, thank you for always having me. In the meantime, I think Ricky's going live. Yeah.
Today or tomorrow is Ricky.
I thought Ricky was doing something earlier in the comments. I thought if he's still here, I thought he was doing something in the comments.
All right, well, we'll transition over to Ricky's channel if he's going live. I'm not sure. Brian, to answer your question, AT&T is tremendous here. Probably pound for pound the most uniform capacity in the state. T-Mobile has nowhere near the uniformity. They've got the fast speeds near the tower sites, right? They struggle with tower density a little bit. It's hard to live stream and FaceTime. Verizon still has work to do with their band 13 only sites once you get out in rural, right? They still have a lot of that. I literally feel like AT&T's upgraded every tower site in Ohio in the last 3 years. It's incredible.
Do you want to know what T-Mobile's biggest problem is, even in areas where they do have good deployment? It's the upload. It's always the upload.
If you're within a mile, you should be okay.
That's being very generous. Very, very generous. I'm just saying that is more typical. It's more typical for me to see something like along the lines of like, say, 300 megabits per second down N41. And
I
then,
swear to God, Dennis, I was just about to say it. I'll get 300 down on N41 and 2 up.
Or less.
Or, wow. You got it bad, bro.
I mean, dude, I get N41 now at my house reliably from T-Mobile. I can get between 50 to 150 megabits per second on the regular on my down. My upload, though, is like 0.97. That's the upload. But I don't feel like talking about that right now. I know you want to go. I want to thank all the awesome people for watching and supporting the myth, the legend himself, Sneed Mobile Tech. If you guys enjoy me, as you can see by the banner, I'm sure you know me by now, but I'm part of Best Phone Plans. Please also feel free to check out the channel in case you have an urge to watch more content. And make sure you're subscribing to this channel, hitting the bell notification, because this man is constantly posting videos with the most latest news, shorts, and other content. So you want to make sure you're informed. That way you know what's going on. This channel is where you should get that information at.
All right, so Best Phone Plans Podcast, bestphoneplans.net. Check them out on YouTube or the website. That's Dennis and Stetson. And RFK Tech is going live, so if you guys want to head over there, I think Baby Yoda's got the links for all the things going on with all the other community members. Big shout out to Santiago. Big shout out to Kamikaze Kid. Also a shout out to... There was another super chat. Man, I wish it would just document these and put them on a list. It was Santiago and
Kamikaze Kid,
and I know Santiago before that too, but was there anyone else? I think there was one.
Darian Smith.
Oh, Darian, thank you, man. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Please do like, share, subscribe if it's your first time here. Hit the bell notification icon to never miss an upload. All the links for the community stuff, Twitter handle, email address, my Patreon page. Support us there. Get early access to content and exclusives not found anywhere else, and discount promos on Los Mobile over on the Discord server. Thanks for watching us, guys. Me and Dennis, we are out.